Good morning. This is Stephen Diedricks from Taxile here on Money Talks on Radio Kidnappers, and thank you to tuning in to this morning's show. So this is the first time I'm back in the studio since lockdown, and it feels good to be back. And yeah, as some of you are aware, before during lockdown we had the show was recorded via telephone, and so Ken and his team are sitting at home putting the show together, and I'd just like to say a great thank you to them, because it would have been quite a task doing that from home and not in the studio, but they did a great job with that. So that's great. And during the lockdown period, it was just a great time to be at home with family, and our family in our little bubble, we ended up doing lots of things together, playing soccer with the kids in the driveway, and due to our soccer exploits, we ended up breaking a couple of windows. So we've contributed to support local businesses in that regard, but we had a great time, and it was 1 week where the children also made 3 course meals every night, so that was quite an experience, and the gym is really getting a workout now. So just like to, if I start, thank Ken and his team at Radio Kidnappers for what they've done and what they're doing in putting the show together, and also thank you to our sponsors for their continued support. So it's great. So just getting on to today's topic, I'd like to talk about the importance of positive cash flow. But as we're all working through this new way of being, and there's been talk about this being a 1 in a 100 year event and that sort of thing, I'd just like us to sit back and just think about things and what's happened in the past, because as humans and people, we're pretty good at surviving and doing and getting through things. So no matter how bad things are, we always do get through things. And just keep with that in mind. If we look back, many years ago, I think 70s or 80s, we had interest rates of 18 to 20%, and people were thinking, "How am I going to make the mortgage? How am I going to pay the bills?" But we all survived through that, and then we got through to, I think it was 1987, and when we had the stock market crash, also commonly known as Black Monday, on the 19th of October of that year. And again, things were tight, but we all got through that. And we survived through that. Then we had the dot-com bubble of the year 2000, and again we got through that. There was the global financial crisis of 2008, and now we have COVID-19. And yes, we are working through that at the moment and adapting, but that's just what we do. So what I want to talk about is, during those tough times and when we were adapting, we all survived, and there were others that did more than just survive. They were able to take advantage of the situation, and they did that by educating themselves and planning. Obviously they couldn't plan for exactly what was going to happen in the future, but they put plans in place so that they could take advantage of whatever the economy did. And for that matter, irrespective of whether the economy was going bad or good, they were still in a better position to do that. So I think that is something that we could look towards, to see how we can better place ourselves, so that as we go through what's been described as the new normal, I don't accept that, but it's just the way that things are happening now, we can get ourselves in a good position. So one way we could do that is by having a positive cash flow. And keep in mind, there are many things that you can do, but I think this is one thing that will help. So this is just a brief couple of things that will affect your positive cash flow. So cash flow, there's like the word flow, it's a doing word, and that goes to cash flowing in and cash flowing out, and it's not an either or. Both happens. You do have a cash flow and you do have a cash outflow, and you have to control both the inflow and the outflow. It's a balancing act. Like in nature, there's always balance. So I'll just digress on nature quickly, and to try and explain what I mean, so that it's not just all about cash. But in nature, if you out in the wild and say you're a gazelle and you wake up in the morning and you think, oh, there's all this grasses, I can just eat away and have no care in the world. That is just looking at one particular aspect. You could call that like a cash inflow to the gazelle. But on the other hand, nature steps in with balance, and if the gazelle doesn't raise his head and look around, he may miss the cheetah who will come and eat him. And that's how nature kind of restores the balance, so that the gazelle can't just eat all the time. He's got to look up and see what dangers there are, and that's where that would be an outflow to the gazelle. So basically an outflow of your cash. So there's that balance in nature, and the same with cash inflow and outflow. There are balances. So it's a bit of an odd diversion to cash flow, but if you remember that, then maybe you'll remember cash flow. So remember the story. So you're looking at your inflows and your outflows, right? So what are cash inflows? Cash inflows are things like if you have a job and you get paid weekly, fortnightly, monthly, then that's money coming into you, so you have a cash inflow. If you have a fixed deposit, so you get interest, so the money coming in is interest, the interest coming in is a cash inflow to you. Now I know at this particular point in time that interest rates are low and there could be other places to invest your money, but you have to take your own advice on that. But for the purpose of this exercise, the interest is an inflow to you. There's also things like rental income. That a positive, where you're in a positive position, a positive cash flow position, the rental income is an inflow of cash to you. I'm not talking about negative gearing, because that's not positive. There's also things like if a royalties from, if you write a book, you get some money there when that sells. And if you have businesses, like for example a network marketing business will pay you commissions, so that's a positive cash flow to you, and that's money coming into you. So those are your inflows. Your outflows are things like if you're an employee, you pay taxes, and you don't even see that money, it just goes to the government. So that's an outflow, and that's something that I think we should try and get control of, and with that we're unlikely to get control of that. We're never going to get control of that if we remain an employee. So that's something to consider. But an outflow is taxes. There's things like your expenses. You pay your food bills, your utility bills, petrol for your car, school fees, extracurricular activities for your children or yourself, tennis lessons, violin, movies, those sorts of things. Those are outflows. Then there's mortgage payments, rent payments, though they are all outflows. So what you want to try and do is have a surplus cash flow. So you want your inflows to be more than your outflows. Now, just on this, I'll digress again. I'm not saying that with your outflows you have to live below your means. I mean, you can decide that for yourself, but I'm not a proponent for living below your means. But I like the idea of using your ingenuity and creating additional cash flows, and then when you create additional cash flows, to use that wisely. But like I said, you've got to decide that for yourself. So I just point that out in case people think that I'm saying, oh, live below your means. So with a positive cash flow, then you can do many things for yourself, and there's many benefits around that with a positive cash flow. Let me just get there. So things like if you have a positive cash flow, right, and if you look at now we're going through a COVID-19 time, and we would have all have heard that many people have lost their jobs. So there's issues with can they continue make their mortgage payments? If you're in a positive cash flow position and you can, there's an opportunity there where you may be able to purchase a house for a reasonable price. And I know it may sound mean that somebody's going through tough times, but it's good to keep a bit of emotion out of it and look at it as unfortunately someone is going through a tough time, but you are now taking advantage of it where you can provide that property for someone else to live in. That's another way to look at it. So cash flow, being cash flow positive also puts you in a position to maybe buy some stocks if it's right and it's dividend paying stocks. But you have to take advice on all of this. But those are just two examples of things that you can do with positive cash flow. If you have a negative cash flow, then you will need more and more money to sustain your standard lifestyle, the lifestyle that you currently have. And that's because you are just spending more and more of your money just to basically stay even or survive. You're paying your rent and all your utilities. And if there's an increase in interest rates on, say, on your credit card or something like that, then it does push you back a bit. And also, if you have certain things that, your car has to be serviced and you need a tire or 2 or 4 new tires, then do you have that surplus cash to be able to get that without going into your credit card? So, so that's just the downside of not having a positive cash flow, not being in a positive cash flow position. Other benefits of having a positive cash flow in I entered on one before this was having a fixed deposit or even just money in a bank, because you then, from the moment you have a positive cash flow, if you have money, you can put money in the bank in an interest earning account, you will start earning interest. And yes, the interest will be low at this point in time, but the point is that you can start earning money straight away with a positive cash flow. You can over time add on to that and then buy a bigger asset, and I would then take advice on that, because this is where you can then start to use a good debt to purchase a bigger asset. But the thing is, when you're in that positive cash flow position, you can start working towards that. The other thing is you can also start paying off your debt sooner. So while you're saving, you could add some more to pay off whatever debts you have. So that's a good benefit. Also, when things become a bit hard, like COVID-19 now, for example, and people we were in lockdown, people were thinking, where are they going to get money to basically just pay their normal utilities, normal expenses? If you do have a positive cash flow, you will have that additional cash to pay your general daily living expenses. The other benefit of having a positive cash flow is if you get your positive cash flow from investments, the more investments you have that are positive, the quicker you can buy other investments and also bring them in a positive position. And that way you can increase your asset pool a lot quicker if you have a positive cash flow. Then it will also help you survive interest rate increases. And I know at the moment interest rates are lower, and people are thinking, yes, interest rates are going to continue to go lower. And I don't know if it is or not. But what I do know is if you do have positive cash flow, if the interest rates do rise, then you will have additional cash to survive through the period. I haven't mentioned inflation, because I think out there's if you mention that, people kind of look at you funny. But it's important to note that it may not have raised its head, but if the government keeps on just putting money into the economy and keep on giving people money without people doing anything for the money in return, that is going to have an effect where at some point in time there is going to be an increase in inflation. And if people watch the U.S. Economy, there was a story where people were going to the groceries to buy the groceries, and all of a sudden overnight the prices shot up, and people were comparing, do I buy groceries or pay a rent or get a medical or pay a medical bill? And that is a real life effect on inflation. So although it doesn't seem to be a big thing here for us at the moment, I would keep that in the back of my mind when planning your future strategy and discussing these things with your financial planner, because in my view that is going to hit sometime, because you can't just be giving money to people without people doing anything for the money in return. So the final thing with having positive cash flow is just that freedom that you have, and you put your head down at night and know that no matter what happens, yep, my bills are paid for, and that's it. That's just a nice freedom and a nice position to be in. So in closing, yeah, look, it's we've been through tough times before, and I mentioned them from high interest rates to the dot-com in 2008, but we've survived, and we will survive because we just adapt, and that's just what we do. To take better advantage of this, one of the things we can look at is the benefits of becoming cash flow positive. There's many other things that go with that, so talk to your financial planners about that. So thank you for joining me today on this episode of Money Talks. So this is Stephen Diedricks from Taxile, your local accountant. Thank you very much. Goodbye.